Hello and welcome to Awful Commentary. Today I want to talk about Civil War 2. Now I know what you're thinking, but Civil War 1 isn't even out yet. Why are you talking about this? And that is because, sir/madam, I'm not talking about the movie, I'm talking about the comic. Mark Millar and Steve McNiven's Civil War graphic novel came out over a decade ago. It changed the landscape of the Marvel Universe for years to come. And no matter how much they've tried, Marvel have never quite managed to replicate the success of the storytelling and even the critical response the Civil War got. So here we are 10 years later with Civil War 2, and I suppose much to the surprise of nobody, I've got some concerns. The first thing that sets my spider senses a tingling is just how commercial the whole thing is. At WonderCon 2016, Brian Michael Bendis retold a story of how they came to the title of Civil War 2. He said that Dan Buckley, the Marvel publisher, said, if they don't call it Civil War 2, then everybody else will, suggesting that this whole idea for this miniseries was a completely natural progression by the Marvel creators. I'm sorry, Brian, I'm a big fan, but there is nobody who is buying into that. If it wasn't a financial decision from up top, then what fantastic timing from the Marvel creators to write this series just a month after the release of the movie. What a fantastic coincidence that Marvel would release Captain America Civil War the movie in May, and then just a month later the Marvel writers happened to have this mini-series called Civil War 2. It seems a shame to me that Marvel and the writers like Jonathan Hickman have spent around 3 years rebooting the Marvel Universe, only to tread a decades-old storyline back just a few months after the reboot. The whole point of Secret Wars was to reset the universe back to the status quo, whilst also promoting smaller characters like Amadeus Cho or Kamala Khan, or moving Miles Morales from the Ultimate Universe. But the whole point of Civil War was that people were bored of the status quo back in 2005. Civil War deliberately subverted the standard Marvel storytelling. And because issue 9 of Secret Wars was continually pushed back, it won't even have been 6 months since everything was reset. The main concern that fans had when Disney took over Marvel was that the financial side of things was going to overwrite the storytelling. It's something that we've seen often, but generally fans have kind of been okay with it because the MCU has been so well developed. But Civil War 2 is so obviously a cash cow that even if it is the best thing written, even if it is better than Civil War 1, fans will always know that it only exists to support the movie. Making a sequel from a story that was and still is unique is like trying to get blood from a stone. How do you recreate a scenario that forces brother to fight brother, sister to fight sister, without retreading old ground? And so to avoid Marvel storylines clashing with one another, they've taken a Philip K. Dick novel, thrown it on in there, and then given characters different opinions about the whole thing. For those who aren't aware of the plot for Civil War 2, it revolves around an Inhuman called Ulysses. Ulysses has the power to perceive certain bits of the future, normally either crimes or disasters. This is something that to superheroes is obviously beneficial. Imagine if they could have predicted the Skrull invasion before it happened. Imagine if they could have seen Norman Osborn's rise to power before he even got there. All of it could have been stopped. The problem arises with just how is this ability used? Is it used to predict and then prepare for massive events like the coming of Galactus? Or is it used to apprehend criminals on the street before they even commit a crime? Now, if that second bit sounds familiar, it's because it's the plot to Minority Report. Civil War 2 is Minority Report, but with superheroes. And that in itself is not necessarily a bad thing. Minority Report is an incredible idea with an okay book and a good film. And replacing Philip K. Dick's almost instantly forgettable characters with some of the most developed in history can only be beneficial. The problem is that this is not an adaptation of the book set in the Marvel Universe. This is a sequel to one of the most beloved comic series in comics. It also pins the writers into a bit of a corner because the ethical and moral dilemma of pre-crime has been something that's been debated in movies and literature for over 50 years. It has been agreed that because fate is something that can't scientifically be proven, pre-crime in itself is a flawed idea. And this whole scenario is something that could quite easily be avoided by the two teams, one led by Iron Man and one led by Captain Marvel, just sitting down at a table, reading Minority Report, and then discussing what to do next. My next concern comes in the form of Ulysses himself, because I'm actually quite intrigued by him, especially with someone with his power. Although we've seen people who can predict the future before, he's pretty unique within the Marvel landscape. If there's one thing that you can be sure of though, had he been around for the initial Civil War, he would have been a mutant. Now I promise I'm not about to get all fictional races racisty right now, but it does seem a little bit like the financial side is coming in again. Since Disney took over Marvel, there has been a massive decrease in the number of Fantastic Four and X-Men comics being released. With the Fantastic Four with Franklin Richards out creating universes that don't even have a comic in circulation. For the conspiracy theorists among you, it comes down to the movie rights. Marvel Studios / Disney own all of the Avengers and the Inhumans. Fox, on the other hand, own the rights to make movies for the X-Men and for Fantastic Four. Because Marvel Studios / Disney would quite like the rights to those characters back, there's been a noticeable difference in A, the number of mutants that are even alive now in the Marvel universe, and B, a big push in the competition. Most noticeably, this comes in the form of the Inhumans, who are now a major part of the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, have their own movie scheduled for some time after Avengers Infinity War, and are now a massive part of the Marvel comics. Although they have always been fairly prominent, they've never been a major player in the way that they are now. Many X-Men fans have stressed the mutants are being replaced by those who have gone through the Terrigen Mist. And by putting an Inhuman at the center stage of the biggest crossover of the year, Marvel is really giving credence to this paradigm shift. Something that is even more evident when you look at the promotional material and notice that there isn't a single mutant on either of the teams. Most probably because they are all off on their own crossover for the Apocalypse War storyline, which just so happens to be coming out around the same time as the X-Men Apocalypse movie. Shh, it's definitely not a conspiracy. But the teams themselves are actually my last concern. Not because the teams are particularly unbalanced, or not even because of the players that are actually being used, but because the sides that some of them seem to have taken doesn't hold up with the morals and the ethics that we know that they hold. For me, this is most noticeable with 4 characters. Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Jennifer Walters, She-Hulk on Captain Marvel's side, and Iron Man himself and Amadeus Cho on Iron Man's side. Obviously, this is something they're likely to play off within the story, but Captain America himself is somebody who would never go in for pre-crime. The whole reason he went into the first Civil War was because it was infringing upon civil liberties, and nothing infringes upon civil liberties more than this. In her everyday life, She-Hulk is a lawyer, which makes it seem even more bizarre that she would want to condemn people before they've even committed a crime. On the other side, Amadeus Cho is somebody of such intelligence that he can predict the outcome of different events. Given that his great intelligence in many ways allows him to predict the future, it seems bizarre that he wouldn't want to be involved with that. And famously, Tony Stark is a futurist. Somebody who is not so much concerned with stopping petty crime than he is with preventing the destruction of the universe. Given that the Marvel storylines have constantly stressed this, especially through his use of the Illuminati, I really hope that they don't just turn around and say, I'm on the good side this time because I was on the wrong side in the first Civil War. For me, the pre-crime side should have been more intelligently constructed. It should largely have gone to the players who have larger concerns than standard crime, those with predictive powers, and then those who were just easily manipulated in the first place. Captain Marvel is the perfect person to lead this team because she's got a lot more on her mind than just, is there a mugging going on? It also makes sense for people like Bucky to be there, and especially Spider-Man, given that his spider sense forewarns him of danger, and that if Ulysses had been around, Uncle Ben would have been saved. It also makes sense for Luke Cage and Daredevil to be on the opposing team, because although they have both been members of the Avengers, they're much more concerned about making sure that people are free than making sure that the world won't be devoured. Obviously, members of both teams are likely to swap sides. The one thing I really hope is that we get a moment at least where we have all 3 former Captain Americas on the same team. Sam Wilson's Falcon / Captain America, Bucky Barnes' Winter Soldier / Captain America, and then Steve Rogers, who is now young again, Captain America. So what do you guys think about Civil War 2? Are you excited about it? Are you excited to see Captain Marvel get even more of a profile boost? Or are you concerned that maybe it's going to tread old ground and there's something the Marvel Universe just isn't prepared for yet? Let us know in the comments if you're an Avengers save everyone you can person, or if you're you can't avenge something that hasn't happened person. Thank you for listening to Awful Commentary, and we will see you next time.